on the back of a motorcycle across the country, and lunch with Hell's Angels. Just one of the many interesting chapters in my life. Hi, I'm Grace and welcome. Now, I think of my life as a big book, a book of chapters, old chapters that have already been written, and new chapters that I have yet to write, but will do it before I get to the end of the book. And one of the most interesting chapters is the time that I've spent on the back of a motorcycle. I have loved motorcycles from very early age. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, Easy Rider was one of my favorites. I've seen it at least 110, if not more times. And since I have an older sister, I've had a brother-in-law from a very early age, and he had a motorcycle. So he would come by every once in a while and take me for a ride. Now, the feeling that you get on the back of the motorcycle, I never had a motorcycle of my own. Vertigo, not a good idea. But even from the back of the motorcycle, it is the most fantastic, amazing feeling of flying almost, of freedom. And it's really one of the best feelings there is. Okay, so fast forward quite a few years. The kid's dad and I got a motorcycle. We got a small one first to see how he liked it because he'd never had one before, never been on one before. So we did like it. The small one we put 15,000 kilometers on our first riding season. And that's from, I'm going to say, end of March to the beginning of December. We rode in the cold so that I could get those 15,000 kilometers on, being the goal setter that I am. We achieved it. So the second year, we thought, well, we'll trade that small one in and we'll get the big Harley that I wanted. And so anyway, that's what we did. We planned a big trip. We had friends out on the West Coast. I'm in Canada, in Ontario. So we are in kind of the middle to bottom half of Ontario. And so you have to drive quite a few days north to head west to get across for the other provinces. So we made it out. We took the ferry over to the island, and we had a great visit, all on the back of the motorcycle. When we came home, we dropped down through the States and went across and back up and around. Great trip. The next year, we decided we'd do the East Coast. And in the meantime, because kids were grown, gone, and the ex was away a fair bit, and I was doing that empty nest thing. And so I ended up, I got a dog. Now, what do you do with a dog and a motorcycle for traveling? I got a small dog. I got what I called her my little pocket pup. She was just a little handful. She would fit here in my hand when she was full grown. My little Stella. And she loved the motorcycle. I had a bag for her with a strap, so she was very secure in between the two of us when we were riding. And it got to that I could say, do you want to go for a ride? Do you want to go for a bike ride? And away she would fly. She would run down the hall, get into the bag by the door, turn around, and just sit there and wait for us to go for a bike ride. So she loved it. Now, on this trip to the East Coast, we met a man. We were heading to Newfoundland, and he was from Newfoundland. So we got talking, and he says, they're so friendly down there. I can't tell you, the friendliest people in Canada live on the East Coast. I'm saying that right now. So he says, if you're in our area, stop by, say hi. So we got down that far, and I'm looking at the paper map, and I said, you know what, we're not that far. We should just stop by and say hi as we're passing through. So that's what we did. So we pull into this little town, a little fishing village, and we see his car by a restaurant. So the kid's dad goes in, grabs us some lunch. We're eating it outside, and lo and behold, he wasn't around. But anyway, so as we're eating, he comes around the corner of the restaurant. And he says, hi, you made it. Good to see you. And he says, do you guys want to, when you're finished there, he says, do you want to go fishing? And we kind of looked at each other. We're wearing our leathers, right? And he says, well, come on, doesn't matter. Come on, we'll take you cod fishing. It's opening day of cod. will take you jigging for cod. So that's what we did. Opportunity presents, you go for it, right? So there we are in a little fishing dory, little fishing boat, wearing full leathers, dog in a bag, and my the kid's dad is fishing for cod. He's jigging for cod. And suddenly we had engine trouble. We had boat trouble. And I thought, oh, this is going to add to the story. How did I know? So he yells across to the other boats, because there was a whole little community of them out there in the water, in the ocean. And he yells, he says, come on over and take these friends of ours out fishing. So there we are, transferring boats, wearing all this heavy leather. And I said to him, I said, you better hold on to me tight, because if I go in the water, you're going too, because I don't swim. My heart was racing so bad. I thought, and I just, to get over that, I just had to keep thinking of the dog in her bag. Keep the dog safe. So, long story short on that, we had an amazing trip fishing, jigging for cod, and we got back to shore a little while later, and he had us up to his home. His mother cooked the fish that we caught. We're sitting around in Newfoundland with complete strangers having fresh cod for dinner. It was just the most amazing trip, part of the trip. And it's one that I'll never forget. Another fun part of the biking life was all the charity work, all the charity runs that we used to go on. And you'd pay so much to go on the run, and all that money raised would go to whatever particular charity it was. Now, we did some through the Legion, and they would often do what they call a poker run. So the different legions in the area would participate, and you'd get a card, playing card, and at every legion. And then by the time you got to the last one, you had a poker hand, and whoever had the best poker hand won. So we had this friend down the road, and he used to bike, and then he hadn't for years. So he saw what fun we were having, so he went and he got a small bike again, and he asked if he could come on this poker run. And I said, of course you can. No, anybody can. You just have to pay your money. And he says, well, I've got some friends that might be interested, but I don't know whether the Legion would approve. And I said, well, why not? What's the matter? What are they? Who are they? And he says, well, they're Hell's Angels. And I said, you have friends that are Hell's Angels and you didn't tell me? I have had this fascination with bikers and bike groups, and like I said, from the time I was a kid. So he says, yeah, he says, they're a good bunch most of the time. So I said, well, of course they can come. I said, but you have to introduce me. You just have to. And he says, oh, I don't know. He says, they can be kind of a rough bunch, and, you know, how they talk to women, right? I said, I don't care. I have to meet them. Make it a bucket list item. I have to meet them. So he says, okay. I whined and moped enough that he said, okay. 2 things, though. He says, you have to stay right beside me when you're around them or introduced to them, and you have to just say hi, and that's it. Don't say a whole lot. And he looked at me as if to say, can you do that? And I said, okay, sure. He just shook his head. I said, oh, come on, it'll be fine. Nothing's going to happen. They'll be fine. So we did. We get on this run, and he was with us, and then he was meeting them at the last place. So we get to the last place, get off the bike, and he went over and he started talking to them, and then he kind of motioned us over. So you got to be cool. So you go over, you just wagger over. And so I did. I stood right beside where he told me to. and he's giving me the arm, like, behave, right? You know, you give an arm, you just kind of push into somebody like you're telling them, you know, something without saying anything. So he did that, and I knew what it was. He was telling me to behave. So he introduced us both, me and the kid's dad, and I was supposed to just say hi, and that was it. No. I stepped forward, my hand out, and I looked him dead in the eye, and I said, "Hi, nice to meet you." And I just stepped back, and it was like he looked at our friend. The friend was giving me the elbow again, a little harder this time, and I wasn't sure what the biker was going to do, but anyway, he just he smiled and he laughed and he said something. I don't remember exactly what he said. If I'd been journaling in those days, I'd have written it all down and I'd know exactly. I could read it, but I wasn't. I remember the feeling I had when he spoke to me. And I knew exactly what he was trying to do. He was trying to get a rise out of me, trying to get a reaction, and he didn't get that. I knew exactly what he was doing. So I just smiled and I laughed and my head like this, like, I gotcha. And he kind of stopped and he looked at me and then he smiled again. He kind of nodded and he says, "All right, let's go get some lunch. You guys can sit with us." Meanwhile, the friend told me to behave, was looking at me with wide eyes like, "What did I tell you?" Right? And I said, "It's all good. We're just going to go have lunch. That's it. It'll be fine." And it was all right. We had a great lunch with these guys. I didn't say another thing during the lunch. I let the guys do their guy biker talk, and I just sat there smiling and just enjoying that moment of, look what I'm doing right now. As weird as that sounds, I really thoroughly enjoyed my lunch with that little group of well-behaved Hells Angels. And so we got looking at our watch. We decided we better get going, on our way home. And by this time, I went to get up, and by this time, the friend had stopped elbowing me to behave because he knew it wasn't going to do any good anyway. And I got up again. I put my hand out. He stood up. He shook my hand. I said, "It's a pleasure to meet you. Safe travels, safe ride home," which was a sign of respect. And he shook his head. He says, "Same to you." He says, "Safe travels." And away we went. That was it. That was our lunch with Hell's Angels. One for the book, and an exciting chapter in my life story book. Now, on to our book of chapters. Let's go back there for a minute. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking back at our lives. And I know there's the whole don't look back, you're not going that way thinking. And that's perfect. That's right. If you're thinking or looking back at something bad that's happened, I want you to keep moving forward. Leave the bad in the past, keep moving forward. But I think there's two good reasons to look back at our chapters that we've already written in life. And one is to enjoy them. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a past chapter, even if it's not with that person, even if you're not with that same person that you shared it with. You can still enjoy it, enjoy the memory, the experience. And the second one is that you always need to look back to see how far you've come. If you've struggled, you were in a spot of struggling, I want you to look back at it and now look forward at the present day and see how far you've come. Embrace that journey that you've had and pat yourself on the back. If you've grown forward, you learn and grow forward, as I say, and pat yourself on the back for doing a good job. Now, in order to write these new chapters that we have in our future, we sometimes have to change up our routines a little bit. And I know that that kind of change, pushing yourself just a little bit past your comfort zone can be scary. Change can be uncomfortable, and sometimes you just have to go with it. Give it a chance. Let those opportunities show up that make exciting chapters in our lives. I want to leave you with a question. What idea is waiting for you to bring it to life? Now, for me, I have a very simple way of living these days, and a couple of things on my list that I want to do this year is that I'm going to take this camera down and figure out how to do a sunrise or a sunset. I have a photography background since I've been living where I am. I've been doing photography for years, and so I know lots of great places, and I want to show you lots of great places. The other thing I wanted to do is to, and this is going to sound incredibly boring, but I want to take my lawn chair and my book, my journal, and my pen down by the water. I'm 5 minutes from the water with a beautiful park that sits up high and overlooks the bay. And I want to sit there early morning and write. I'm just going to write in my lawn chair by the water. Incredibly boring, and but it's something I want to do. It's all about the Zen for me these days. Anything that I can do or read or write about that is peaceful and Zen-like, that's what I want to do. So let me know down in the comments below, what idea are you going to bring to life this year? What new chapters are going to be in your own book, your own life book? And always remember, chapters come from those opportunities that we allow to happen. So never be afraid to try something new. This is me. I was Spike. So enjoy your day. Get out and maybe try something new. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you spending your day with me, and I look forward to our next chat. Thanks again. Bye-bye.